The United Nations Security Council convened in an emergency session that stretched into the early hours. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as the high-definition footage from the Kuiper Belt Observatory played on the massive screen. The objects had maintained their perfect formation for 6 hours now, accelerating smoothly toward the inner solar system. At current velocity, they will reach Earth in approximately 120 days. Dr. Chen explained, her voice steady despite having been awake for nearly 30 hours straight. We've attempted communication across all known frequencies and mathematical sequences. They haven't responded. General Williams from the North American Coalition leaned forward. Could our signal simply not have reached them yet? We've confirmed our transmissions reached their position, Chen replied, bringing up a new set of data. They received our messages. They're choosing not to answer. The room erupted in overlapping voices until Secretary General Okonkwo raised his hand for silence. What are our options? Commander Santos stepped forward from his position along the wall. He hadn't planned to speak, having been invited merely as an observer due to his position as Luna Base Security Chief. His dress uniform felt uncomfortably tight as all eyes turned toward him. With respect, Mr. Secretary General, we should assume hostile intent, Santos said. Those objects maintain military spacing. They're conserving energy by drafting behind each other while preserving firing lanes. That's not a diplomatic formation. You can't possibly know their intentions, the Chinese representative objected. An advanced species might organize themselves in ways we don't understand. Santos tapped his tablet, sending a file to the main display. A side-by-side comparison appeared. The alien formation next to historical naval battle formations from Earth's history. Physics dictates certain efficiencies, Santos continued. If they wanted to appear non-threatening, they would approach in a spherical or scattered pattern. This. He indicated the perfect geometric arrangement. This is designed to bring maximum firepower to bear while minimizing their vulnerability. I've seen this before. The room fell silent again. No one needed to ask where Santos had seen such formations. His reputation from the Mars settlement conflicts preceded him. The commander who had held the Olympus Pass against overwhelming odds when separatist forces attempted to seize the main water processors. Dr. Chen studied Santos with new interest. Unlike the politicians and bureaucrats who dominated the room, here was someone who grasped the gravity of what they faced. Their eyes met briefly across the chamber, a moment of understanding passing between them. If Commander Santos is correct, she said, turning back to the Secretary General, we have 4 months to prepare for an invasion. Outside the United Nations complex, life continued normally. Crowds filled the streets of New York, unaware of the existential threat approaching from the outer solar system. News channels still reported on celebrity scandals and sports results. Only a handful of amateur astronomers had noticed unusual activity among the scientific community, their questions on specialized forums going conspicuously unanswered. Back in her temporary quarters that night, Dr. Chen stared at her terminal screen, reviewing the data for the 100th time. Something about the propulsion signatures nagged at her memory. She pulled up archived research papers, scrolling through years of theoretical work until she found it. A paper co-authored by herself and Dr. Hiroshi Yamamoto, titled Quantum Displacement Theory, Practical Applications for Interstellar Travel. The alien vessels were using a refined version of the very drive system they had proposed 3 years ago, before Yamamoto disappeared without a trace during a conference in Geneva. Chen's hands trembled as she cross-referenced the signature patterns. This isn't first contact, she whispered to her empty room. Someone's been talking to them for years. Commander Santos moved methodically around the holographic displays, studying each nation's secret defense systems with calculating precision. His expression revealed nothing, but his mind cataloged every weapon, every defensive measure, searching for ways to integrate them into a cohesive strategy. The kinetic platforms could work in tandem with the lunar energy weapons, he muttered, more to himself than to the Chinese general standing nearby. Synchronized strikes from multiple vectors would overcome their point defenses. General Joe nodded slowly. Our satellites were designed to operate independently, but with the European Quantum Communication Network. Exactly, Santos agreed. No lag time between attack sequences. We hit them simultaneously from directions they can't defend at once. Across the room, the Russian contingent argued with American officials about targeting protocols, while European technicians demonstrated their unbreakable communication system to skeptical Indian engineers. The cacophony of languages and technical jargon filled the underground facility. Dr. Chen barely noticed any of it. Hunched over her workstation in a corner, she pulled up more of Yamamoto's research files, comparing energy signatures from the approaching Armada to his theoretical models. The correlation was undeniable. The aliens had somehow acquired and implemented Yamamoto's work on quantum displacement. Find something interesting, Doctor. Chen startled, looking up to find Santos standing beside her. She hadn't heard him approach. More than interesting, she replied, angling her screen toward him. Damning. The propulsion system these aliens are using is based on research my colleague developed. Research that was classified by 3 different governments. Santos studied the comparative analysis with narrowed eyes. Yamamoto, I remember the name from security briefings, disappeared 3 years ago. Everyone assumed industrial espionage, Chen said. Some corporation had poached him for a better offer. There was an investigation, but it went nowhere. She pulled up Yamamoto's profile photo. A handsome Japanese man with intense eyes and a confident smile. We worked together for 6 years at the Quantum Propulsion Initiative. Were you close? Santos asked, his tone carefully neutral. Chen's fingers paused on the keyboard momentarily. We were partners in every sense until shortly before he vanished. Santos nodded, processing the implications. Could he have defected to these aliens willingly? A week ago, I'd have said absolutely not. Chen's voice hardened. Now I'm wondering if I ever knew him at all. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm from Chen's system. One of her automated search algorithms had found something. Fragmentary transmissions from a deep space listening post, archived and almost forgotten. The timestamps placed them 6 months before Yamamoto's disappearance. These signals came from beyond Neptune's orbit, Chen explained, enhancing the data. Classified as random cosmic noise at the time. But look at the pattern structure. Santos leaned closer. Similar to our first detection of the Armada. Exactly, Chen confirmed. I think they've been scouting us for years. And somehow, they'd made contact with Yamamoto. Before Santos could respond, a junior officer hurried over. Commander, Secretary General Okonkwo is requesting all section leaders. The Defense Council is ready to hear preliminary strategies. Santos straightened. Keep digging, Doctor. If Yamamoto betrayed us, he might have shared other vulnerabilities beyond propulsion technology. Chen nodded, already turning back to her screen. I'll find everything he knew. And everything he told them. As Santos walked away, Chen opened a secure channel to her former lab at the Quantum Propulsion Initiative. If anyone could help her understand how Yamamoto might have established contact with an alien civilization, it would be their communications specialist, Dr. Fatima Rahman. The call connected after several security verifications. Belisa, is it true what they're saying about first contact? Rahman asked, her expression concerned. It's worse than they're saying, Chen replied grimly. And I need everything we have on Hiroshi's personal research, especially anything he kept separate from our official projects. Governor O'Keefe's transmission ended, leaving the War Council chamber in weighted silence. Her offer, to use Mars as humanity's forward defense, carried unmistakable risk for the nearly 2 million colonists who called the Red Planet home. Santos surveyed the room, noting the conflicted expressions on each face. Governor O'Keefe understands what's at stake better than anyone. The Mars colonies have always operated with the knowledge that they're months away from Earth assistance. They're civilians, not soldiers. Admiral Chen of the Pan-Asian Fleet argued, though his objection lacked conviction. Every Martian colonist undergoes survival training that would humble most of our special forces, Santos countered. They live daily with the knowledge that a single breach could kill thousands. They've developed response protocols and redundancy systems we could learn from. Defense Minister Abasi still appeared unconvinced. Even if we accept this strategy, we'd need to deploy our limited forces across two defensive positions, Mars and Earth. We might end up too thin at both instead of strong at one. Santos activated the tactical display again, zooming out to show the entire inner solar system. That's precisely the advantage. The aliens expect us to concentrate our defense at Earth. By establishing our primary line at Mars, we force them to adjust their approach while they're already committed to their trajectory. He manipulated the display, showing the alien armada's projected path. Their formation and acceleration curve suggests they're optimized for a single, overwhelming assault on a specific target, Earth. They don't expect significant resistance before reaching our orbit. Santos highlighted Mars' position. This gives us the element of surprise. Dr. Chen entered the chamber, her expression tense as she approached Santos. "Commander, I have new information you need to see." She handed him a secure tablet, keeping her voice low. Simulations based on Yamamoto's research suggest their vessels can't make rapid course adjustments during acceleration phases without significant energy costs. If we can force them to maneuver at Mars, they'll burn through fuel reserves intended for their Earth approach. Santos reviewed the data before addressing the Council. Dr. Chen's analysis confirms my tactical assessment. If we force them to engage at Mars, we disrupt their carefully planned approach. Whether we stop them there or not, we significantly weaken them before they can reach Earth. The Australian representative who had been quiet until now leaned forward. "And what of the Mars colonists? We're asking them to bear the brunt of an alien attack." A new transmission alert sounded. Governor Okafor appeared again, this time from what appeared to be an underground construction site. Workers behind her moved with purpose, reinforcing massive shelter structures. "We began preparations the moment the Armada was detected," she explained, wiping dust from her brow. "Mars was always designed with defense in mind. Our primary habitats can be lowered into subterranean bunkers. Our water and air recycling systems are already hardened against radiation and impacts." Her expression hardened with resolve. "Earth must survive at all costs. Mars is prepared to ensure that happens." Santos noticed subtle changes in the council members' postures, straightening backs, lifted chins. Okafor's courage was having its effect. "There's another factor to consider," Dr. Chen added. "Mars's lower gravity provides significant advantages for our ship's maneuverability and weapons range. Our vessels can operate with 30% less fuel consumption in Mars orbit compared to Earth orbit." The Secretary General surveyed the room. "It seems we have our strategy. Commander Santos, you'll coordinate with Governor Okafor to establish our Mars defensive position." He turned to the others. "Meanwhile, we continue building our secondary defense at Earth. If Mars falls, we ensure humanity's cradle does not." As the meeting adjourned, Santos caught Dr. Chen by the elbow. "There's something else, isn't there? Something you didn't share with the Council." Chen glanced around before responding quietly. "Yamamoto's personal files contain designs for a weapon system specifically tailored to the quantum displacement drives the aliens are using. If we can build it in time, then Mars won't just be our first line of defense," Santos finished. "It could be our killing field." Dr. Chen stared at her laboratory's secure terminal, the blue light illuminating her exhausted face as she combed through Yamamoto's encrypted personal server. Dr. Raman had granted her access remotely, breaking several security protocols in the process. "This doesn't make sense," Chen muttered, scrolling through Yamamoto's research notes. The brilliant scientist had documented his work meticulously for years, until approximately 8 months before his disappearance. Then his notes became fragmented, coded, and increasingly paranoid. One entry caught her attention. "Signal confirmed. Not random. Not natural. They're listening." Chen's fingers trembled slightly as she opened the attached audio file. A strange, pulsing sequence played. Similar to the transmissions they detected from the approaching Armada, but cruder, as if someone was learning to speak a new language. The timestamp indicated it was recorded nearly 4 years ago. "He made contact first," she whispered. "But how? Why?" The answer came in a hidden subfolder labeled Breakthrough. Inside was a video file. Yamamoto sitting alone in his lab, speaking directly to the camera. He looked thinner than she remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. "If you're watching this, Eliza, then they've finally arrived," he began. Chen felt a chill run through her at the use of her first name. "I discovered their signals by accident while testing quantum entanglement communications. They were already watching us, studying us, but they weren't planning to make contact yet." Yamamoto leaned closer to the camera. "I offered them something they couldn't resist, a way to improve their propulsion efficiency by 30%. Just enough information to prove I had value, not enough to give away all our secrets." His expression hardened. "They call themselves the Concordiate. They've conquered 17 star systems through overwhelming force and technological superiority. Earth would have been next on their list eventually." Chen's communicator chimed with a priority alert. Commander Santos needed her in the war room immediately. She ignored it, transfixed by Yamamoto's confession. "By advancing their timeline, I've given humanity a chance to prepare," Yamamoto continued. "The Concordiate believes we're primitive, barely able to defend our own planet. They don't know about our quantum research, our defensive capabilities, or our Mars colonies. I've fed them carefully selected information to maintain this illusion." Chen couldn't reconcile this with the evidence of betrayal. "You're claiming to be what? A double agent?" As if anticipating her question, Yamamoto smiled thinly. "You think I'm a traitor? The evidence certainly suggests it. But there's a weapon in my private research, design specifications for a resonance cascade that can disable their quantum drive systems. I've hidden it where only you would think to look." His expression softened momentarily. "Remember our first date? That's where you'll find it." The video ended abruptly. Chen sat back, mind racing through possibilities. Their first date had been at the Geneva Observatory, the same place Yamamoto had disappeared from 3 years ago. Her communicator chimed again, more insistently. This time she answered. Santos appeared, his expression grim. "We've intercepted a transmission from the Armada," he said without preamble. "Our linguistics team managed a partial translation. They're discussing Earth's defenses in detail, including classified systems and protocols they shouldn't know about." "Yamamoto," Chen breathed. "That's our assumption," Santos confirmed. "But there's something else." The communication referenced the human asset providing the information. Present tense. Chen felt the blood drain from her face. "He's still alive. He's with them right now." "That's what we believe," Santos said. "The question is, whose side is he actually on?" Chen glanced back at the frozen image of Yamamoto on her screen. "I don't know, but I think I know where to find the weapon he designed against them. I need to get to Geneva immediately." "Not possible," Santos replied. "The first wave of our defense fleet launches for Mars in 6 hours. We need you on it." His expression softened slightly. "Whatever Yamamoto hid in Geneva, we'll have to find another way to access it." Chen closed her eyes briefly, making a decision. "There might be another option, but I'll need secure communications with the Geneva Observatory directly from the fleet." From the observation deck of the flagship Dauntless, Commander Santos watched as the last of Earth's defense fleet took position in Mars orbit. The deployment had taken 3 weeks of continuous operations, moving ships and equipment through the most massive military mobilization in human history. "Impressive, isn't it?" Dr. Chen said, joining him at the viewport. Below them, Mars glowed rust-red against the blackness of space, while the moons Phobos and Deimos appeared as tiny irregular dots orbiting the planet, humanity united by a common threat. Santos nodded, his expression grim. Unity born of desperation. The fleet consisted of vessels from every spacefaring nation. Chinese kinetic strike cruisers, European carrier ships launching swarms of autonomous fighter drones, American energy weapon platforms, and Russian heavy destroyers bristling with nuclear missiles. They maintained a disciplined formation, concealing the majority of their forces behind Mars and its moons. "Any word from your contact at the Geneva Observatory?" Santos asked. Chen's expression tightened. "Dr. Nazari is searching the archives. If Yamamoto hid something there, she'll find it." She hesitated. "The question is whether we'll have time to use whatever he left behind." Before Santos could respond, Lieutenant Park approached with a tablet. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected movement. The alien scout is breaking formation." Santos took the tablet, studying the projected course. "Right on schedule, just as we predicted." The alien scout ship had accelerated ahead of the main Armada, its trajectory bringing it directly toward Mars. The vessel moved with unusual speed, its energy signature pulsing rhythmically. "They're scanning extensively," Chen observed, looking at the sensor data, "trying to map our defensive positions before the main fleet arrives." Santos allowed himself a small smile. "Let's give them something to find, but not everything." He activated his command channel. "All units maintain stealth protocols. Defensive grid sections 8 through 12. Power up to 50% capacity. Let our visitor detect them, but keep our main forces hidden. Throughout the Mars orbital zone, select defense platforms and ships increased power, becoming visible to the alien scanners while the majority of Earth's forces remained concealed in Mars' electromagnetic shadow. Scout vessel will reach optimum interception range in 18 minutes, Lieutenant Park reported. Deploy intercept team, Santos ordered. Remind Captain Diaz, we want that ship disabled, not destroyed. Specifically target its communication array and engines. Chen watched the tactical display as a small strike team detached from behind Phobos, approaching the alien scout from its sensor blind spot. 6 modified interceptors, painted matte black to minimize visual detection, moved with precision. "Do you think Diaz can pull this off?" Chen asked quietly. "She's the best pilot we have," Santos replied. "If anyone can capture that ship intact, it's her." The minutes ticked by intense silence as they watched the strike team approach. When they reached attack position, the interceptors moved with devastating coordination. Precision strikes disabled the alien vessel's engines and communication systems before it could transmit a warning to the main fleet. "Target neutralized," Lieutenant Park announced. "Boarding team is deploying now." Captain Diaz's voice came through the command channel. "Approaching alien vessel. No signs of countermeasures. Beginning hull breach procedures." Santos turned to Chen. "This is it. Our first real look at what we're facing." The boarding team's helmet cameras activated, streaming to the command center. The images showed a strange, curved hull being cut through with plasma torches. As the metal peeled back, the interior of the alien vessel became visible. "What in God's name?" someone whispered. Instead of individual crew members, the ship appeared to be operated by a network of cybernetic organisms, part machine, part biological tissue, connected to central processing nodes. The entities didn't react as the boarding team entered, continuing their functions as if the humans weren't there. "They're drone workers," Chen realized, studying the footage. "Extensions of a centralized intelligence." Captain Diaz's voice was tense over the comm. "Commander, we found what appears to be the central processing hub. It's pulsing, almost like it's alive." Fire and debris erupted across the Martian sky as another defense platform exploded under concentrated alien fire. From the underground command center, Governor Okafor watched tactical displays showing the battle raging in orbit. The initial success of Operation Thunderstrike had given way to a brutal war of attrition as the Concordiat recovered from the surprise attack. Olympus sector shields at 38%, reported her defense coordinator, voice steady despite the situation. Reinforced bulkheads holding in sectors 3 through 7. Okafor nodded, her bandaged head throbbing with each heartbeat. Maintain evacuation protocols for outer habitats. What's the status of our orbital forces? Santos is reorganizing for a second coordinated strike. European carriers have withdrawn behind Deimos to launch reserve drone squadrons. The command center shook as another impact struck somewhere above. Dust sifted down from ceiling panels. Okafor gripped the edge of the tactical table, refusing to show weakness despite the pain lancing through her injured ribs. "Governor, we've lost contact with Agricultural Dome 2, a young lieutenant reported, her voice cracking. "Life support systems failing throughout that sector. Deploy emergency response teams," Okafor ordered. "Activate all civilian reserve units with rescue training." She turned back to the orbital display, studying the alien fleet's new formation. "They're adapting quickly, learning our tactics." In orbit above Mars, Commander Santos reached the same conclusion from the bridge of the Dauntless. The Concordiate vessels had reorganized after their initial confusion, establishing new command hierarchies to replace the destroyed leadership ships. What had begun as a rout was now becoming a grinding battle of technological equivalents. "They're targeting our quantum communication nodes," Santos noted, watching as alien vessels concentrated fire on key Earth ships. "They've identified our coordination advantage." Dr. Chen looked up from her console, where she'd been analyzing data from the captured scout ship. "They're using a distributed network now, Commander. Each surviving ship has taken on partial command functions. We can't just target command vessels anymore." Santos studied the tactical display. "Then we changed strategies. Lieutenant Park, signal all fleet commanders. Implement Mosaic Protocol." Throughout the Earth fleet, ships began breaking formation, separating into smaller, independent battle groups. Each would fight according to predetermined objectives without requiring constant central coordination. "The Russian strike group is taking heavy damage in Sector 4, reported the tactical officer. "Chinese kinetic platforms moving to support." Santos nodded. "Direct the American energy weapon platforms to provide covering fire. We need to keep the orbital lanes to Olympus City clear." A new alarm sounded. The tactical display updated to show a large formation of Concordiate vessels breaking through the defensive screen, heading directly for Mars. "They're targeting Olympus City," Chen said, her voice tight. "Population 300,000. Intercept course," Santos ordered. "All available ships to defensive position Alpha." The Dauntless shuddered as its engines pushed to maximum acceleration. Several Earth vessels moved to intercept, but the alien formation maintained its course toward the Martian colony. "They won't make it in time," Chen whispered. In the Olympus City Command Center, Governor Okafor received the alert. Without hesitation, she activated the colony's final defensive protocol. "Initiate Operation Underworld," she commanded. "All habitats begin emergency descent." Throughout Olympus City, massive hydraulic systems engage. The city's modular habitats began sinking into underground bunkers excavated years earlier for this exact contingency. Warning sirens blared as civilians rushed to designated shelters. Ground vehicles raced to evacuate outlying sections too distant from the main bunker system. "Descent rate nominal," reported the systems engineer. "Main habitats will reach safe depth in 8 minutes." Okafor activated a direct channel to Santos. "Commander, Olympus City is initiating emergency protocols. We can protect most of the population underground, but our surface installations will be exposed." "Understood, Governor," Santos replied, his voice distorted by interference. "Hold as long as you can. Help is coming." As the alien vessels entered Mars' upper atmosphere, Okafor turned to her staff. "This is what we planned for. This is why we're here." Her eyes shone with fierce determination, despite her injuries. "Mars stands between Earth and extinction today. We will not falter." Dr. Chen's infiltration team moved through the alien command vessel's curved corridors, encountering little resistance. The ship's interior pulsed with bioluminescent light that cast eerie blue shadows across their path. Unlike the scout ship they'd captured earlier, this vessel seemed almost deserted. "Something's wrong," Lieutenant Rodriguez whispered, his weapon raised. "Where are all the drones?" "Concentrated elsewhere," Chen replied. checking her handheld scanner. According to the ship's energy distribution, most systems are focused on the bridge section. She pointed ahead. That way. The team advanced cautiously until they reached a sealed doorway unlike the others they'd encountered. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, reacting to their presence with subtle movements. "Can we breach it?" Chen asked. The team's engineer studied the door. Conventional methods would trigger alarms, but if Dr. Yamamoto's files are accurate, she attached a small device to the surface. The liquid metal rippled more violently, then parted like a curtain. Beyond lay a vast chamber dominated by a central platform surrounded by holographic displays. Standing there, manipulating the alien technology with practiced ease, was Dr. Hiroshi Yamamoto. He turned as they entered, his expression showing no surprise. "Belisa, you're earlier than I expected." Chen stepped forward, weapon trained on her former colleague. "Step away from the controls, Hiroshi." Yamamoto smiled thinly. "Always so direct. That's what I admired about you." He gestured to the displays around him. "Do you know what this is?" "The Concordia's entire battle network. I have access to everything. Fleet movements, weapon systems, communication protocols. You're controlling their ships?" Rodriguez asked incredulously. "Not controlling. Influencing." Yamamoto's fingers danced across the alien interface. Subtle course adjustments, delayed response times, occasional targeting errors. Just enough to give humanity a fighting chance without revealing my position. Chen kept her weapon steady. "You expect us to believe you're helping us, after providing them with our propulsion technology, after giving them Earth's defense plans." "I gave them outdated information, Elisa." Yamamoto's expression hardened. "Everything they know about Earth's defenses is 3 years old. Every strategy they've planned is based on assumptions I carefully crafted." "The weapon design you left at Geneva," Chen said. "Dr. Nazari found it." Something like relief flashed across Yamamoto's face. "Then you have everything you need. The resonance cascade will disable their quantum drives." Once implemented, a new voice interrupted, speaking in strangely accented English. Once implemented, it would indeed cripple our entire fleet. The air behind Yamamoto shimmered as a tall, slender figure appeared. Its skin was pale gray with faint bioluminescent patterns that matched the ship's interior lighting. Large, black eyes dominated a face with minimal features. When it moved, its motions were unnaturally fluid. "May I introduce the Hive Queen of the Concordiat?" Yamamoto said, his voice suddenly tight. "She's been most interested in human ingenuity." The alien regarded the humans with clinical detachment. Dr. Yamamoto has been an invaluable asset. His betrayal, while anticipated, is nonetheless disappointing. Chen's mind raced. "You knew he was working against you." "Of course." The Hive Queen's mouth barely moved as she spoke. "Just as we knew you would eventually capture one of our scout ships. Just as we knew Commander Santos would establish his defense at Mars rather than Earth." She gestured to Yamamoto. All scenarios he predicted with remarkable accuracy. Yamamoto's face drained of color. "You've been using me." "As you used us." The alien moved closer to him. "Every deception you planted, every flaw you introduced into our systems, all monitored, all allowed to proceed under our supervision." Chen realized with horror what this meant. The coordinates Yamamoto transmitted. "We'll lead your forces into our most heavily armed defensive formation," the Hive Queen confirmed, "while our main fleet bypasses Mars entirely and proceeds to Earth." The Dauntless shuddered as another alien energy blast struck its shields. On the bridge, Commander Santos gripped his command chair, studying the tactical display with growing concern. The Concordiat vessels had suddenly changed formation, breaking into 2 distinct groups, one engaging the Earth fleet at Mars, the other accelerating toward Earth itself. "They're splitting their forces," Lieutenant Park reported, confusion evident in his voice. "The secondary group will reach Earth in less than 48 hours. Santos activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All vessels maintain position at Mars. This is their strategy. Divide our forces by threatening Earth directly. He turned to his communications officer. Patch me through to Dr. Chen's infiltration team. Static filled the channel before Chen's voice broke through, breathless and urgent. Santos, it's a trap. The Hive Queen knew about Yamamoto all along. They'd been setting us up. Understood, Doctor. What's your status? We've encountered the Hive Queen directly. An explosion interrupted her transmission. Pinned down near the command center. Yamamoto is. The communication cut off abruptly. Santos made his decision instantly. Redirect all quantum communication to Earth Defense Command. Warn them about the approaching Concordiate vessels. He turned to Lieutenant Park. Calculate the position of the true Hive Queen vessel based on the battle's energy patterns. Park worked quickly. Sir, if the infiltration team found the Hive Queen, then that command ship must be the real command center. Santos finished. The Concordiate practices deception, just as we do. Inside the alien vessel, Chen and her team had taken cover behind strange organic columns as energy weapons fire poured around them. The Hive Queen had vanished in the initial chaos, while Yamamoto remained at the control platform, frantically manipulating the alien systems. What are you doing? Chen shouted over the weapons fire. Trying to correct my mistake. Yamamoto replied, his fingers dancing across the alien interface. If I can access their primary communication network. Rodriguez fired his weapon at approaching drone soldiers. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. Yamamoto's expression suddenly changed to one of triumph. Got it. Chen, the resonance cascade design. It can still work, but not how we planned. The disruption needs to be initiated from inside their network. Chen understood immediately. You're talking about a system-wide infection. That would affect every connected vessel simultaneously. Exactly, Yamamoto confirmed. But someone has to remain here to ensure it propagates through their entire command structure. Their eyes met across the chamber, understanding passing between them. Chen shook her head. There has to be another way. There isn't. This is my redemption, Eliza. Yamamoto's voice softened. Get your team out. Take the emergency pod in Section 3. I've programmed it to return to your fleet. Aboard the Dauntless, Santos received a new transmission. Coordinates from Chen's team, directing them to a vessel hidden among the Concordiate support ships. All battle groups converge on these coordinates, Santos ordered. Focus all firepower on that single target. Earth vessels broke from their defensive positions, surging toward the previously overlooked alien ship. The Concordiate responded immediately, redirecting forces to protect the vessel, confirming Santos's suspicion that it held special significance. As the battle intensified around the hidden command ship, Santos received another transmission from Chen. Her face appeared on screen, her expression grim but determined. Commander, Yamamoto is initiating the resonance cascade from inside their network. All Earth vessels need to temporarily shut down quantum communications to avoid feedback. Understood. How long do you need? 3 minutes, Chen replied. And Commander, Yamamoto won't be coming back from this mission. Santos nodded solemnly. His sacrifice won't be forgotten. Throughout the Earth fleet, ships systematically disconnected from the quantum communication network. In the momentary silence that followed, Santos watched the tactical display, counting down the seconds. When the counter reached 0, a wave of energy pulsed outward from the hidden Concordiate vessel. One by one, alien ships began to drift, their propulsion systems failing as the resonance cascade spread through their network like a virus. The quantum drives that Yamamoto had helped design now became the Concordiate's greatest vulnerability. Each connected vessel infected the next until the entire fleet hung motionless in space.